Hello everyone, this is Kim here at Hancock Homestead and Gardens, and I'm back on the farm now. I had gone down to visit my brother. My brother lives in Lebanon, Missouri, which is down in the Ozarks, and it's just beautiful country down there. And so while I was down there visiting, we had done some state park hopping in the Ozarks. The Ozarks is a mountain range. They used to be much bigger mountains. In fact, they were one of the biggest mountain ranges on the North America continent. But over time, through erosion and just passing of time, they have become either big hills or small mountains, however you want to look at it. In northern Missouri, they're kind of just hills. But in northern Arkansas, they do become much larger, and so you might call them small mountains. They are still beautiful in their own right, and I truly enjoyed visiting the Ozark Mountains. And so we went to Merrimack Springs, which is a beautiful place to visit. The spring was just the most beautiful blue color, and it had an overhang cliff going around it. It was just beautiful. And they also have little fish hatcheries down there to help supply the Merrimack State Park. And we got to feed the fishies. And also part of the Merrimack Springs Park there was an old iron ore factory. It was the processing plant, and they still had the huge fire chimneys that they had to use to melt the ore down, the iron ore down. And so the chimneys kind of stand in this park like statues of times past, and so that was really cool to see. So after we finished at Merrimack Spring, then we went on down the road towards Dillard's Mill, and we had to go through a little town called Stillville. And they had a little general store there, which is one of Steve's favorite little spots to go. And in the store, they just had all kinds of old-fashioned items that you may have seen back, like in the late 1800s or early 1900s. And these items, though, were like reproductions that you could purchase. And they had an old Coke machine there, and inside the Coke machine was ice and bottled sodas, and so we bought us a bottled root beer. And they had this large selection of birdhouses, and so Steve said, I want you to pick out something for your birthday. And so I picked out a birdhouse, and I just thought this one was so cute. And then after we finished doing our little bit of shopping there at the general store, then we went on down the road towards Dillard's Mill. And Dillard's Mill is one of the, it's the last fully functional operating mill. Now, of course, they don't actually produce anything from there because we have factories now. But they could still produce flour and cornmeal there. But now they have it like a museum, and it was really neat. And it sits next to a river, and the water flows down, and the water turns the great big wheel, which then turns the grinding stone, which breaks up the wheat to become flour, the corn to become cornmeal. And anyway, the mill was just a beautiful sight to see, sitting next to this river. And we had to take quite a little hike to go from the parking lot down to the mill to see it. But it was a beautiful walk along the way, and there was a little stream with a bridge over it. And so it was a, you know, a very peaceful place. After we left Dillard's Mill, then we went on down the road further to Montauk State Park. And while we were at Montauk State Park, we took a little hike down to the spring. And this spring wasn't quite as pretty. It was more or less just a pond in the ground. But if you looked, you could see the water bubbling up from the bottom through the sand. And so that was kind of cool. And the surroundings were just wooded and, you know, beautiful trees, but it wasn't quite as pretty as the Merrimack Spring that came out of the side of the cliff. But anyway, so after we finished our little hike down to the spring and back, and it was only like a quarter mile down there, then Steve took me to eat there at the lodge at Montauk State Park. And there at the lodge, they had this beautiful cottage garden surrounded by a wooden fence, and there were like probably 100 hummingbirds out there in that little, I don't know, it's like 8-foot by 8-foot garden. But I mean, there were like hundreds of hummingbirds, and it was so cool to see them and to hear them. And so that finished our evening then. And so that was our day in the Ozarks. So anyway, yeah, I just had a wonderful time, and I just want to say thank you, Steve. This is Kim at Hancock Homestead and Gardens. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to know more about our homestead and what we do on it, please subscribe.